Now, there's a couple other things, though, that we need to touch on. Values, for instance, okay? When we look at real estate in general, you know, you have your seller that takes a market value, you have a buyer that says, okay, if they're doing it privately, they want to bring down the value. In the long run, a lot of times, a seller will not get market value, and perhaps the buyer, you know, didn't put in the correct clauses, and in the end, as you said, people end up in litigation. But for an evaluation of a dental practice, is a dentist, and this isn't a slight on dentists, but are they competent enough to be able to establish a value of their practice? Do they know what market value is?
There's enough data that banters around the marketplace that people can pick up some hearsay to say, I think this practice should sell for 6 months revenue or 1 year's revenue or a multiple of my net. There's a lot of different formula that are bantered around the industry, particularly because of the internet in our day and age. Information is free and readily available. Unfortunately, it's unqualified, it's usually hearsay, and it's probably a rumor. And we don't always know the terms and stats behind that transaction. There could be a seller loan to the buyer, there could be real estate involved, there could be family issues that cause the purchase price need to be lowered or higher. So when we gather this data in hearsay, quite often it's not properly qualified. So it's hard to put a value on a business in any nature at any time by a private seller. But also going to the depth of your question about the buyer, buyers really just want to pay less. That's their motivation. And they're young and they're ambitious and they want a career. And quite often what a buyer will do is to say, give me a break, doc. I'll buy your business. You're not paying a broker fee, so why don't we just take that off the top? So right off the get-go, the buyer's lowering price by saying, if there's no brokerage fee, why don't you give that to me?
But you see, the problem with that also is that emotion can cost.
Oh.
I mean, there's a dollar value to emotion. We know that in the real estate is that when people, a lot of times when, let's say, a broker presents an offer to someone, they try to work on the heartstrings. Mm-hmm. And, you've got this young dentist coming up, and here you are, you're selling a practice, and a young dentist is there, and they remind you of you 30 years ago and say, let's give them a break.
Exactly.
And you think to yourself, oh, you know what, I'm doing good. But that could be a tenth of what your practice is being, you could lose a tenth of the value.
That'll cost. Empathy is very expensive.
Right.
And being members of the same profession, the young dentist will indeed pull on the heartstrings, give me a break, someone gave you a break when you were young, and the older dentist thinks, I've done well, I've socked away my retirement funds, let's give this kid a break. That's fine. And if an owner wishes to give a discount to a buyer, you're certainly entitled to do it. But why would you? And what I say to business owners is it's incumbent upon you to ethically extract all the wealth you can from all the assets you have in your life. And as a dentist, your dental practice could be one of the largest assets. Why give it to somebody? You can give it to charity, you can give it to your children, give it to your grandchildren. But you don't have to give it to a buyer. They'll pay it off, and that extra 10 to 20% that a broker usually extracts, we do usually get another 10 to 20 in sale price.
Yep. Is
easily paid off in another 1 to 3 years of financing for the buyer. They're making a 20 to 30 year investment most of the time. That's nothing in the scope of their career. Why give it to them unless it's family or a best friend's son? That's up to you, Dr. Seller. But I wouldn't leave money on the table because I have 2 grandchildren now, Todd, and I want that extra 10 or 20% of the value of my business to go to them or charity, not to the buyer.